Have any of you ever had to play the role of the new kid, like at a new school, or there's a new church that your parents are making you go to, or as a part of a new team? I don't know about you, but I used to really hate going places where I was the new kid and I didn't know anyone and I felt pressured to conform. It would give me really bad anxiety, which would make me have acne and like really bad gas. So this made the start of ninth grade really tough sledding. I started my freshman year by going to Crescent City Christian School, and I'm not really trying to throw any shade, but my experience kind of sucked. It was super strict and really long class times. The uniforms were not really my cup of tea, and I had to cut my luscious long hair at the time. It couldn't be over my ears. I walked in the doors, and from the jump, I was butting heads with the teachers, my classmates, you name it. You see, I had built up this wall before even going to school. I had shut them out before even giving them a chance. And when humans build up walls around who they are and what they're about, it's hard to tear them down. But I'll tell you what, Jesus surely can. And he did. And Paul talks about this in his letter to the Ephesians. You see, last week, Pastor Tommy introduced us to the letter to the Ephesians. It was the letter that Paul wrote to the church in Ephesus. And in chapter 2, he's speaking specifically to the Gentiles about their relationship with the Jews. There was a division, a barrier in faith between the Jews and the Gentiles. The Jews were God's chosen people who he had a promise with. And Gentile is a word that essentially means non-Jew. So the label Gentiles encompasses all of us that are not Jewish in ethnicity. So let's read. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 11 through 12. Therefore remember that formerly you, the Gentiles, so he's talking to the Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by the so-called circumcision, which is performed in the flesh by human hands. Remember that you were at the time separate from Christ, excluded from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now Christ Jesus, you who formerly were far off, have been brought near by the blood of Christ. For he himself is our peace, who made both groups into one, broke down the barrier of the dividing wall, by abolishing in his flesh the enmity which is the law of commandments contained in ordinances, so that in himself he might make two into one new man, thus establishing peace, and might reconcile them both in one body to God through the cross, by having put to death the enmity. And he came and preached peace to you who were far away, and peace to those who were near. For through him we have our access in one spirit to the Father. So there's really a lot going on there, but Paul is telling the Gentiles of the church in Ephesus that through Jesus, the barrier between them and God is gone. So spiritually, they can lean on him. Before they were far off, but now Christ has made a way. That applies to us too. Christ has made a way for us to him through his work on the cross. But check this out. Not only has Christ made a way for us individually, but he's made a way for us to live as one in community. It doesn't matter your culture. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter what race you are, your political affiliation, whether you crinkle or fold, or you're a cat person or you're a dog person. We are the church together. Or in more relevant terms, we are a squad, and any beef we've been having is over through, by, and for Jesus. Paul knew the walls of division would keep God's family from thriving, and the same is true today. So he explains to the Gentiles that God has made a way. He's broken down the walls. Just like God called the Jews and the Gentiles to reconcile and make peace with each other, God is still calling us to reconcile and make peace with each other today. Just like God took the first step toward us, we can take a first step towards others. Just like Jesus tore down the walls that divided us from God, we can begin to tear down the walls we've built between each other. And just like Jesus built a new way for us to connect with God, we can work together to rebuild relationships that were damaged. Why? Because we're God's family. And as God's family, we can do for others what God has done for us. You see, when I was entering that new school, Crescent City Christian School, that wall I built up, it could have been torn down by Jesus. The anxiety I had, the fear that I had built up, the resentment I had towards my mother that was making me go, and towards my teachers, it could have all been resolved. But it wasn't. You see, almost immediately as the school year began, 2 weeks after it had started, I left. I left Crescent City and went back to my old school. I was trapped in my ways. And I wonder what would have been different about my high school experience if I would have let God work through that situation. I really hope and I pray that you can lean on God to get you through any situation, to break down our personal walls, the walls of others, and let us be the bridge towards reconciliation. And be confident in this. We are God's family. We are a squad. We as a church, we squad up so that we can do for others what God has done for us.